of now the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, that we penetrate the cabinets.
I also want to reiterate how deeply sorry Canada is for the situation this put President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation in. It is extremely troubling to think that this egregious error is being politicized by Russia and its supporters to provide false propaganda about what Ukraine is fighting for.
Why does this government treat Alberta like a fart in the room that nobody wants to talk about or acknowledge?
I heard her say a word that I know is distinctly unparliamentary, and I think she may want to withdraw it. The word was F-A-R-T.
I mean, we love your Mr. Trudeau. I mean, his family's always been such big fans about that.
Hey everybody, how we all doing today? Monday, November 11th, 2024. In case you weren't aware of that, welcome to the Maple Files. As always, I'm your host, Snow Himbo, and we got one hell of a show today. We're just gonna get the elephant out of the room. Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. He defeated the orange has defeated the coconut in an epic blowout. Wasn't even close. He was one of the first Republicans in a long time to win the popular vote. And breaking news that just got in, looks like Republicans are going to have control of the House, so they'll have the House, the Senate. He's got the popular vote. Pretty much a full lane. So he's not really going to have a lot of opposition to do all the scary stuff that the Liberals are screaming doom and gloomy about. Some of it I don't know if he's actually going to do, because as I, who is someone who is of the post-duopoly persuasion, try to remind people on all sides of the aisle, Donald Trump's like every other politician. He broke a shitload of promises in his first term, and probably going to break a shitload in this term. No, I think I think what he's actually going to get up to is a little more sinister than that. But that is just a bit of a teaser. Because on my new show starting this Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Snow Himbo Streams, we're gonna cover a bunch of that, and I'm gonna give a bunch of predictions on how I feel like the next 4 years are gonna go. We also got a lot of exciting Canadian news to cover. But first, I did want to get a little bit of a sneak peek. I wanted to give a bit of a sneak peek for Thursday's show. So Donald Trump did win the election. The Liberals are taking it about as expected, really. There's no other way to say it. But they're going a little nuts. I think we've lost the plot a little bit. So without further ado, let's just let's get into it, and I'll show y'all what I mean.
Kamala Harris is not done. She is in fact actually leaving Taylor Swift-esque Easter eggs, and I'm absolutely living for it. Let me show you what I just found. So for Kamala HQ or Harris Waltz emails, this is typically the bottom of the emails that you're going to receive from them. This email was sent to blank. Thanks so much for being a supporter. Paid for by Harris for president. As you can see, I got this one on November 5th. Obviously, election day. I just happened to go look at one now on the 9th, and this is what I see. The top part is the same. This email was sent to blank. Thank you so much for being a supporter. But now they're making a point to include the Harris Victory Fund. That's not all. Will be allocated to Harris for President's recount account. All those feelings we had, something's not right, the math is not mathing, what's going on? Don't worry, Prosecutor Kamala is on the case. I'm not surprised we haven't heard anything about a recount yet, because there are a couple states that are not finished yet. I'm sure that the Harris campaign was really trying to look at the final numbers before they said, okay, let's go. I'm gonna go donate, but just a reminder, as the saying goes, when we fight, we win.
So, you heard that correctly. In a stunning turn of events, liberals are gearing up for Stop the Steal. So I thought the most responsible thing to do as a content creator and professional himbo, I've been spending the whole week, and I'd love you guys to join me. I've been spending the whole week encouraging every liberal I know that the election was stolen, that they need to take their country back. Why? Because I really want to see a shit lib insurrection. I want to see pink pussy hats climbing the walls of the Capitol building. I feel like that's the only way to ring in 2025. I feel like it would be irresponsible of me not to. But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. It's not even a week after Trump has won, and liberals have already gone all the way down into the election was rigged. Elon Musk stole the election with Starlink. They're doing the thing that MAGA did, where they're like reading tea leaves and they're like going over. Everybody's a professional, like ballot counter now and like comp sci major. So there it is. And all these people, by the way, the funniest part to me, the part that I can't get over, the part that activates my fucking almonds, is that these people are doing this without a shred of irony. Absolutely no irony. They are just like, yep, the election was rigged. I'm going to go off this TikTok video. Just completely pretending like the last 4 years they didn't like shout down every single heartbroken Trump supporter for claiming the election was stolen. They've completely realigned themselves. And the funnier thing is right now we're seeing Trump supporters attack them and assure them that the elections are perfectly valid and we have free and fair elections. They're doing all the shit that liberals were doing to them. They've completely switched roles. God damn, it's not even 2025, y'all, and we've already entered like bizarro world. And I would like to point out, this is why you can't get sucked into these political cults. Because this isn't how rational people think. This is how cults think. Because the reason why both of these camps can behave in this way, completely hypocritically, without a shred of any kind of self-reflection as to how hypocritical they're being, is because Blue MAGA and Red MAGA really are very, very identical. They are virtually the same people. They want an authority figure to save them. They want to shirk all personal responsibility for improving their material conditions, and they are trying to project that onto a hero figure, a parental figure. And they have so much emotional investment into this hero figure that they are willing to change reality. They are willing to completely break from reality, which is what we're seeing a lot of Trump supporters do now, as a bunch of us over on the left called it. Trump is currently in the process of filling his cabinet with neocons. I called it. You called it. We all knew this was going to happen. What, did you think he was actually anti-war? You think he was fighting the deep state, did you? No. It's the same psyop that got a bunch of y'all with Bernie and got pretty much all of us with Obama. They always do this. They create a hero figure and they place them front and center, and the hero figure says, hey, follow me. I know all your problems are valid, and I'm going to fix them. And then everybody, instead of organizing, breaking free from the system, building dual power, organizing, setting up mutual aid, they invest themselves back into the machine. And that way they're neutered, because they're dependent on the establishment to deliver change for them. So they don't have to put in any work to actually produce change, because they're depending on an external force to give them that change. That's how this play has always worked. So that's why you see liberals and conservatives essentially in like playing opposing roles to the roles they played 4 years ago. Because these people are both in cults. They are entangled in a disordered one-way parasocial relationship with a politician. And one of them is too emotionally invested to process information properly, so they are just blindly asserting that the election was stolen. And the other group of people is so emotionally invested that they are willing to completely forget their positions that they took willingly, proudly, and confidently 4 years ago, and just play the opposite role. And I called this too. The second Trump won, I said, watch. All of the people who claimed the election in 2020 was rigged are now suddenly going to completely trust the process because their guy got in. And just look at it for yourself, because that's 100% what they are doing. They're sitting there, all of a sudden, you guys probably saw the clip, but there was a clip of Joe Rogan circulating around where he's like, oh my God, who knew voting was still real? And it was crazy to me, because it's like, really? Just because Trump won, suddenly voting's real? You're that fucking hoodwinked that it's like, it's literally just like, if my guy wins, then the process is to be trusted. And if the person I didn't want to win wins, then it's fraudulent. Again, without a shred of irony, both of these factions are just contradicting themselves at the exact same time. It's outstanding. Anyway, just a bit of a teaser. I hope to see all of your beautiful faces on Thursday night at 9 p.m. Going to be going into a lot of it, because my God, there's a lot of stop the steal, and we got celebrities, we got DNC ops, we got news anchors talking about this. We have the whole liberal apparatus pushing the election fraud shit. It's incredible. All these people who told everybody 4 years ago that we have the fairest, freest, safest elections in the world. It all just 180. Anyway. What up, Monarch? How you doing, comrade? In before Joe Rogan grift Zionist Bitcoin because Musk or Rogan sponsored told Rogan to do so? Oh, of course. Y'all, I don't know if you've seen the Zionism that's already materializing like a black dragon within the Trump campaign, but holy shit. Y'all, this ain't Make America Great Again. This is MAGA. This is Make Israel Great Again. We're gonna see, this might be the most pro-Israel shit to ever exist in the next 4 years. Hey, Mina Lita. That was when their team was winning? Exactly. And that's the thing. Both these camps did this. They were like, oh, my team's winning? Elections are perfect. My team lost? Must be rigged. Elon floated down with Starlink and he siphoned a bunch of ballots away and put them on the dark side of the moon, or I don't know, whatever they're doing. We got a lot. They're getting unhinged. Every day is more unhinged. They're just reaching critical mass. Make room for the new form of shitlibs being red MAGA and orange MAGA, Bitcoin, crypto bros and gals. Oh yeah, they're absolutely going to be the new shitlibs. And I just have to say, I'm not really looking forward to the next 4 years. Because I don't know if you guys remember, but every single time Trump did something stupid or psychopathic, or tried to get us into a war, or blew up a bunch of kids overseas, you'd have all these dipshits twisting themselves into pretzels trying to explain it away as some kind of genius, brilliant 4D chess move, or how it's actually a good thing. And we're just all too stupid to understand the advanced thinking going on in his Diet Coke soaked brain. Mind you, again, this is the guy who thinks tariffs are attacks on the other country, and not like on the businesses that import goods. Just the tariff shit alone, I don't know how he even has fans anymore. You look into that tariff plan for 5 minutes and you're like, this guy has no idea what the fuck he's doing at all. But cult's gonna cult. And listen, to all the people on the left who don't understand how Kamala Harris won, it wasn't just that Kamala Harris was a question mark that ran a completely tone-deaf campaign. Because that ain't just it. People also have to understand, and I've heard 1,000,001 copes, 1,000,001 analyses, mostly from these weirdo hacks, the bread tubers, who are scrambling to get their subscribers to come back after they lost a bunch of them because they were deceived this whole time, thinking that, oh yeah, Kamala's got it in the bag. Listen. Trump is a dice roll. He's a dice roll. Kamala Harris represented status quo. Everybody's economically struggling. Life isn't good. People are terrified of World War III. There's an ongoing genocide overseas. There's multiple proxy wars going on. Like, Kamala Harris represented status quo to a group of people who are deeply, deeply dissatisfied with status quo. She was given a chance to separate herself from Biden and be like, I'm different. She didn't do it. She was like, nah, yeah, you're just voting for more of this. And Donald Trump was a dice roll. They're like, you know what? I don't like what we're doing now. So, I don't know, maybe, I feel like a lot of people probably thought like, hey, maybe Trump will fuck something up and accidentally get something right. It was dice roll. And that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think it's a bit more simple than, I feel like people are like vastly overcomplicating this. And I feel like a lot of online voices are vastly overcomplicating it because they're trying to, I feel like a lot of these bread tubers, they feel this pressure to never be wrong about anything. And they feel like they're just going to get like turned on or abandoned whenever they're wrong. And I feel like that's always a really bad move to have, because there is nothing more attractive a quality in a content creator than someone who's willing to just be like, look, I just got it wrong. This was shit analysis. Wasn't good analysis. I'm sorry. I'll try and figure out how to get better. That's infinitely more attractive than people creating these fanciful narratives on how nobody could have predicted the results of this election, which I think a lot of these libs are doing. They're just taking it to the next level of, well, it must be stolen because I didn't see this coming. I wasn't expecting a blowout. This is kind of like 2016's Big Brother. You know, in 2016 they're like Russiagate. Now, probably thanks to the whole stolen election shit from Trump, they're going full like, oh, it was rigged. Kamala Harris, trust the plan. They're literally like, trust the plan. So that's pretty much where we're at. So we do have some thoughts from global news ever since Orange Man did win the election. Oh. Give me one sec here and we'll play it up. So this is a Canadian news source.
When I win on November 5th, the migrant invasion ends and the restoration of our country begins.
A promise Donald Trump says he'll keep by deporting millions of undocumented immigrants. There's concern some of them will seek refuge further north before Trump takes power.
You're going to start seeing more asylum seekers coming to Canada immediately.
It's happened before. In 2017, U.S. immigration protections expired for some Haitian and Central American refugees. Over the next 6 years, more than 100,000 of them entered Quebec through Roxham Road, an unofficial border crossing. But recent changes to the Safe Third Country Agreement gives Canada the power to turn away any asylum seekers fleeing their home country through the U.S.
I guess it's going to be a challenge for the government to decide how are we going to handle this given what's going on in the U.S. And that's going to be where, they're going to have to decide, are we going to accept these refugees and asylum seekers or send them back?
But there are questions of whether the U.S. has the resources needed to conduct a large-scale deportation, and if so, how long it would take.
The president-elect has made it clear that he's going to expand resources in whatever ways he can, deploying National Guard. I think the threat alone will generate a response.
Last month, the Prime Minister announced plans to cut immigration over the next 3 years to freeze population growth. The Fed...
And again, we see here, this is one analysis that I do agree with from the election in America, that the Liberal Party has a problem with up here in Canada as well, with the whole plans to cut immigration thing. One of the reasons why Kamala Harris did kind of eat shit a bit, this was a factor. Okay? It's an addition to what I've said before. One of the reasons was, instead of standing on her own and offering objectively popular progressive policy, because for as much as Bernie was a cuckold of the highest order, go check out some maps of the independent donations for Bernie Sanders. Red states, blue states, it didn't matter. His support was insane. And it was progressive policies. Also, if you look at the election results, a lot of red states voted for progressive policies. So the problem that Harris had was she kept kind of courting the right and tacking to the right and trying to find this like this center position where she could get votes from conservatives and get votes from liberals and people on the left as well, which never fucking works out. Because anytime you market yourself as diet Republican, they're just going to vote Republican. They're just going to vote conservative. And our government has the exact same problem. Trudeau himself has been running to the right over the last number of years. And all that does is it signals to the people. All that does is signal to Canadians, hey, the Conservatives are actually kind of in the right here. Which makes people go, oh, well, why don't I just run with the Conservatives then? If you're adopting all their positions, if you're adopting all conservative positions, then clearly you support these positions. And people automatically go, okay, well, I guess out of the two, here's what people think. And I haven't heard someone else talk about this, so I'm going to talk about this because I'm always right and everybody else is wrong. Okay? When you see two parties, both of them have conservative positions, people think, okay, well, who has more experience being conservative? Because if we're just kind of both adopting these conservative positions, who's gonna be better at enacting them? And they're gonna go for the Conservatives because that's their bag. You know, liberals at least have like diet progressive sometimes policies. So
Feds say they do have a plan for a potential influx of asylum seekers, but stop short of any details.
We absolutely recognize the importance of border security and of controlling our own border, of controlling who comes into Canada and who doesn't, and we will do that.
Most people have no clue.
Oh, barf. All right, so I'm gonna make a bit of prediction because I want to paint a picture for y'all. Okay, here we go. Now, knowing the kind of campaign that PP, Pierre Poilievre, is running, a big part of his platform is immigration because that's like the go-to for reactionaries, obviously. How do you think this is going to affect his campaigning? If immigration in Canada increases, first off, as a result of the election, because if you check out Google Trends, move to Canada is at like a record high right now. So you might get a fair bit of Americans who just want to come to Canada because, well, they don't like Orange Man. A lot of them are just lying, obviously, but on top of that, you might get a bunch of other just immigration, especially if Trump is signaling that, you know, at the end of the day, he's going to do a mass deportation. How do you think that's going to affect how PP runs his campaign? He's going to get to point to Canadians and go, look how bad immigration's gotten under this Liberal government. Vote for me and I'll fix all of it. Okay, he will absolutely use what's going on in the States cynically. And because there's a lot of low information Canadians out there, they're just going to listen to him and go, well, shit, I'm scared of immigrants because I've been propagandized into thinking they're the reason why I'm so poor and miserable and not the capitalist class that is exploiting me for my labor or something. And he'll use that. He will absolutely use that as a political tool because that's how right-wingers function. Remember what I said before. Conservative politics, the bread and butter of conservative politics is taking pro-capitalist, pro-business, pro-corporate policy and repackaging it so it looks working class friendly. They take an objectively popular with big business policy and they wrap it up and go, this is good for you. You're going to like it. Oh man, this is going to make your life so much easier. That whole trickle-down scam that Reagan had, where the conservatives in the West are still all operating from that same playbook. You know, and people fall for it. Why? Because they're desperate. They're unhappy with the neoliberal government they're saddled with. And much like Trump with Poilievre, if he wins, it's probably going to be conservatives doing the same thing. Probably going to be them rolling the dice and going, well, let's see what he does. Maybe he'll, and this is so much of how conservative campaigning works. People think in their head, well, maybe he will somehow magically make life less expensive. Maybe he'll just figure something out. Maybe he knows something I don't. They are hedging their bets on change. And a lot of conservative campaigning, especially with the current iteration of the CPC, the Conservative Party here in Canada, because they have access to a shitload of capital. A lot of this conservative campaigning is convincing people that the change, the break from the status quo, is going to be better for them. And at this point, frankly, majority conservative governance is going to be shit, but Trudeau governance is shit too. I frankly could do without either of them, and I think both of them are poisonous for Canada. I think Trudeau's government's been poisonous for Canada for a long time, but I think Harper was an absolute fucking disaster. And I think whether we are stuck with more Trudeau or we get PP, either way, I don't think this is what Canada needs. A while back, I shared the numbers with all you folks, just kind of indicating how in trouble Canada is, how fucked we are when it comes to debt, specifically household debt, how much wages have stagnated, how economically insecure Canadians are. Like, it's a 5-alarm fire right here. And I think most Canadians might just be at the point where they're so desperate, they're just like, you know what, I gotta roll the dice. I can't do more Trudeau. This Liberal government is not working out for me. And at the end of the day, what that may most certainly result in is the Conservatives taking majority power, and they will absolutely drive the economy off the cliff, just like they did with Harper. I showed you all that cycle. Ineffective neoliberal governance gives rise to fascism. The fascism fucks up the bag for the working class to the point where it's not manageable. And at that point, another neoliberal figure appears to spread hope and change and reset the cycle. That was the purpose of Obama. That was the purpose of, yes, Bernie. That was the purpose of Justin Trudeau. These people come out of the woodwork and they go, I'll fix the bad conservative government. Gold Monarch, what is Canada's version of BlackRock? It is BlackRock. We're in bed with a lot of the same corporations as you guys down there. We have a lot of mining companies up here that have a significant control. But we're in bed with all the same cats. Anyway, we've got some more news here. This is an interesting one. The hub.ca. Make that bigger so we can read the text. Sean Spear. Trump's election win and Trudeau's emissions cap are interlinked. Here's how. Donald Trump's significant election win and the Trudeau government's controversial emissions cap on the oil and gas sector are interlinked. Let me explain. Economists and other policy experts often argue that climate policy ought to aim to meet our emissions targets in a way that minimizes the economic costs. This is typically categorized in macroeconomic terms. The goal is to have an inverse relationship between declining emissions and rising economic output. It's hard to see how the government's emissions cap on the oil and gas sector conforms to this type of quantitative thinking. Singling out Canada's most productive and export-oriented sector for its own emissions target, one that quite possibly requires lower production in the short and medium term, will doubtless create economic harm that economist Trevor Tombe has shown will extend across the national economy. Yet that only tells part of the story. As high as the quantifiable costs may be, the qualitative ones may prove even worse for the economy and society. Over the past quarter century or longer, there's been a growing sense in many Western societies of declining middle-class opportunity and rising economic insecurity for median workers. This intuition is backed up by evidence. As advanced economies have transitioned from a goods-producing economy to a knowledge or service-based ones, we've seen the relative demand for mid-skilled workers, typically defined as those with more education and training than a high school diploma, but less than a 4-year degree, has fallen. The rise of what's known as job polarization has created a labor market that looks like something like an hourglass. There's growing demand at the high and low levels of the skills distribution and decreasing employment opportunities in the middle. The decline in manufacturing employment is a big part of the explanation. The manufacturing sector for most of the second half of the 20th century was the quintessential source of middle-class jobs. It consistently provided high levels of demand for mid-skilled workers, particularly men. As manufacturing employment has declined to a combination of technology and trade, most jurisdictions have lacked a comparable source of alternative demand for these workers. Although one doesn't want to oversimplify it too much, it's fair to say that these labor market developments have played a key role in the growing sense of attenuation and insecurity that has come to mark modern society. Canada has been something of an outlier on these issues. Although we've seen declining manufacturing jobs and mid-skilled employment overall, the latter has been far less marked than elsewhere. Our labor demand for mid-skilled workers has held up more than our peers. Prompts the question why? The short answer is Canada's energy sector. Economists like David Green and Kevin Milligan have documented the extent to which natural resource economy in general and the oil and gas sector in particular have sustained middle-class demand in our economy. As Milligan has written, nothing has contributed more to natural resources to buttressing the Canadian middle class against the rapidly changing global economy of the 21st century. One way to think about it is this. As the manufacturing sector's demand for mid-skilled labor systemically fell over the past 3 decades or so, the natural resource sector in general and the oil and gas sector in particular hoovered up a lot of the excess supply. The types of workers who would have otherwise been displaced and left to slide down the skills distribution into lower-paying jobs were able to find well-paying alternatives developing the country's oil and gas resources. The broad-based effects of this middle-class employment cannot be overstated. One can even argue that the oil and gas sector's demand for mid-skilled labor has played a key role in protecting Canada from the social pathologies and political excesses that have marked other advanced economies. Here's where it ties in. These considerations, particularly in light of Trump's re-election, shouldn't be lost on Canadian policymakers. At a minimum, they ought to be cautious about how their policy choices affect one of the remaining sources of middle-class opportunity in the economy. That's what makes the Trudeau government's proposed emissions cap on the oil and gas sector so bewildering. Not only will targeting a high-value sector impose macroeconomic costs, but when one accounts for its socioeconomic contributions, the effects could be even more far-reaching. It risks contributing to declining mid-skilled labor demand, lower labor force participation rates, particularly for men without post-secondary credentials, and ultimately higher rates of inequality in our society. Rates of inequality that, as I have demonstrated beforehand multiple times, Canada cannot handle. We can't handle much more inequality. We've maxed out that skill tree. Excuse me. The US election demonstrates the political consequences. Trump's electoral appeal on jobs, trade, and immigration contributed to major gains with the types of voters who have been affected by job polarization and declining middle-class opportunity. These socioeconomic trends have also been key factors in the rise of disruptive politics elsewhere in the advanced world. Why then would Trudeau government enact a policy like the oil and gas emissions cap, which risks creating those conditions here? If Ottawa wants the oil and gas sector to do more on emissions reductions, it could consider accelerating the rise of industrial pricing or increasing fiscal support. But singling out the sector with punitive measures is imprudent as a matter of statecraft. The risks far outweigh the benefits. Canadian policymakers ought to recognize that the rise of job polarization and political populism are inextricably linked. This, of course, doesn't mean that the government shouldn't advance climate change policies that may conflict with resource-based employment. But given the role that the oil and gas sector has played in sustaining middle-class employment and opportunity, we must be judicious in balancing the benefits and costs of different policy actions. As Milligan rightly put it, for Canadians concerned with inequality, the equalizing effect of resource development on our economy is too strong to ignore. If we ignore it, the costs and consequences could be significant. Trump's re-election should be a salutary warning. So, it's already a lot of talk of the ramifications of Trump's presidency up here. Can you say buttressing again? Buttressing. Canada has an extra time zone to fit in dildo. Not even David Dole can defend Trudeau. If Trudeau loses, we may never have to see or hear from Dole ever again. Please, I would love to take David Dole's place. Because I would love his viewers. I would love to radicalize them and get them to withdraw from this duopoly hell that he keeps them in, much like the twerps at the Vanguard who just finished blocking me because I ratioed them. It was a brutal ratio too. Oh my god. And the Kyle Kalinskis, all these dopes. Teal Orca. I've seen all sorts of pro-Palestine accounts be throttled for K-Hive. Or for Kamala Harris. It's weird. Yeah, I've seen it too. Friend of the show, Squid Diddley, just had her sizable account nuked for something fairly innocuous. Innocuous, rather, not innocuous. So please follow her. I shared her account on X or Twitter or whatever the fuck. Snow, your pinky finger on your non-dominant hand could do David Dole's job. If I drew something on it and just talked about how amazing Kamala Harris was, yeah, I think I could. What is going on, Natalie Williams? Hope you are well, comrade. Guess what? It doesn't matter which party wins, the oligarchy always wins. Correct. Correct for America and correct for Canada as well. We are absolutely no different up here. But alas, we do need to move on because we do have some breaking news. Very, very breaking news. BC is investigating the first presumptive human avian flu case caught in Canada. British Columbia health officials are investigating what's believed to be the first human case of avian influenza caught in Canada after a teenager tested presumptively positive for the disease, the Ministry of Health announced Saturday. The teenager, who the ministry says is from the Fraser Health region, is currently receiving care at BC Children's Hospital, while officials work to confirm the diagnosis and trace potential sources of exposure. According to the statement, avian influenza, also known as bird flu, is a virus that primarily affects birds but can occasionally spread to humans through contact with infected animals or in contaminated environments. Now, I did this on Politically Homeless before. I will ask you guys to pay attention to the focus that these articles are giving. BC's provincial health officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, says the case marks the first time H5 avian influenza has been caught by a person in Canada, as far as they know, although there have been isolated cases reported in the US and other countries. Our thoughts are with this young person and their family during this difficult time, she said. Henry said a thorough investigation is underway to understand how the virus may have been contracted. The minister noted that public health officials are tracking contacts of the patient to monitor for symptoms and to provide guidance on testing and prevention measures. Currently, no human cases have been identified in connection with this incident. Dr. Isaac Bagosh, an infectious disease specialist at Toronto General Hospital, says the virus is of particular concern because it has the potential to cause significant clinical harm in humans. This has been a virus that's been on the radar to cause epidemics or potential pandemics. While human infections with avian influenza are rare, Health Canada says symptoms can range from mild to severe, potentially leading to pneumonia, organ failure, and even death. Since 1997, over 900 human cases have been reported globally, particularly in Asia and Africa, with about half of them resulting in death, according to Health Canada. However, the government cautions this fatality rate may be overestimated, as mild infections can often go undetected and underreported. Wow, really? I don't need to say it. If this seems familiar to anybody, yeah. Another part of what makes the virus concerning, Bogach said, is its ability to reassort or swap genes to make it more readily transmissible. Excuse me. What up, Indy? We're talking about cocks. Well, chickens. We're talking about chickens. According to the Toronto-based physician, avian flu outbreaks in the U.S. have already led to at least 44 human cases, though he said this may be a gross underestimate. We know that political borders can't stop the spread of infectious diseases, and of course this can happen in Canada and elsewhere around the world, he added. According to the federal government, there have only been one case of H5N1 ever reported in Canada. A Canadian resident died of avian influenza, H5N1, in early 2014 after returning from a trip to China, where they were likely infected. Since early October, the H5N1 virus has been detected in animals at numerous sites in BC, including 22 poultry farms and in a variety of wild birds and small mammals such as foxes and skunks. Earlier this week, Vancouver Island's health authority warned residents about a possible exposure to avian flu at a petting farm in Campbell River. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says that as of November 10th, there were 23 sites, most of which are commercial poultry operations, actively dealing with avian bird flu infections in BC. Over 6.4 million birds in the province are estimated to have been impacted. Avian flu outbreaks are more likely to occur during fall when migrating wild birds can pass it on to poultry farms or backyard flocks, according to Sean Hall, a spokesperson for the BC Poultry Association. Hall said farmers are urged to move their flocks indoors and adopt safety precautions during this high-risk period. Guests are only allowed on the farm when it's essential and with an appointment, he told CBC News. Farmers wear personal protective equipment to help prevent the spread. In light of the confirmed cases among animals in BC, officials are recommending that residents avoid direct contact with sick or dead animals, keep pets away from affected wildlife, and report any dead or ill birds or mammals to provincial authorities. Now, I don't know about... Sorry. God damn it, Nick. A cock Lacoste. That's good. I don't know about you guys, but every single report surrounding bird flu that I personally see has a weird fixation on farms, food production, food supply, stuff like that. That's why I say always pay attention to the focus on these articles, because they're framed in a certain way. This is from a mainstream news outlet, don't forget. So, whenever they craft one of these articles, the majority of the focus they have is what they want you to, that's what they want the takeaway of the article to be. Every single one of these articles that covers bird flu, it specifically discusses the food supply. Specifically. So to people who are worried about bird flu coming and killing us all, I'd say maybe give an alternative consideration that what might be a risk, or what the powers that be might consider is at risk, could be the food supply. It could be the angle here, or just the opportunity that the rich and powerful take. We've been covering for a while what they really want to do with meat farms in general. So all I'm going to say is stay tuned. But yeah, that is Canada's first presumptive case of bird flu. So obviously not the best news. And very odd timing too, given that Agent Orange has just re-entered the the presidency. Sorry, I almost slipped up there. Next bit of Canada news we have here. This one's probably pretty surprising to Americans. But to those who aren't aware, because most of us in Canada already are, most likely, Canada is pretty much as in the tank for Israel as the States are. Recent news as of November 9th, 2024. Nova Scotia NDP candidate out after criticism for troubling posts about Israel. Now, you always got to ask yourself, what do they mean by troubling posts about Israel? Are they saying, like, openly anti-Semitic things? Are they saying things hateful? Or are they just pointing out that, like, maybe kids shouldn't get blown up? We'll dive in. Halifax. An election candidate criticized by the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, CIJA, which is a group up here in Canada who functions very much the same as AIPAC in a lot of instances, for troubling and damaging social media posts, is no longer running for Nova Scotia's New Democratic Party in the November 26th general election, the party says. In a news release Saturday, the provincial NDP said Tammy Jakeman is no longer the party's candidate in the Eastern Passage District, which is south of Halifax. New Democrats are committed to ensuring the safety and dignity of all members of the Jewish community and Nova Scotians of all faiths, the release said. We recognize that everyone running for office has a responsibility to ensure that their comments do not cause undue harm. The Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs issued a news release Friday, which included pictures of two posts by an account bearing Jakeman's name on the X platform formerly known as Twitter. One from the November 2023 responds to a World Children's Day post from the Auschwitz Memorial by saying that children in Gaza will die because Israel is obsessed with killing all Hamas regardless of the human expenses. In another, also from 2023, the same Jakeman account retweets a post that said, "Apartheid Israel is at its happiest when terrorizing Palestinians." Excuse me. So right off the bat, there's a lot less hate here and more just pointing out, humanitarian crises. These are, the way they have to repackage it, much like in America, is they have to make the perpetrator as the victim. Because as you see up earlier here, they're committed to ensuring the safety of dignity of all members of the Jewish community. They use that interchangeably with Israel as well. But if you look, the victim target down here, they're pointing out a perpetrator and a victim. And so you see that repackaging. As of Saturday afternoon, the account appeared to no longer exist on the platform. Jakeman did not immediately respond to a request for a comment. The Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, along with the Atlantic Jewish Council, said the statements were inflammatory and hurtful in Friday's release. Statements of this nature often have real-world impacts, contributing to a climate of fear and hostility experienced by Jewish community members, the release said. Yeah, speaking of the real-world impacts that Israel has on the Palestinians, has apparent real-world impacts on Zionists whose feelings are deeply hurt by people pointing out what the state of Israel's doing, I guess. Because I don't know how else to package this. At all. The groups called on provincial NDP leader Claudia Schender to say why Jakeman was allowed to run for the party and to dissociate the party from Jakeman's damaging remarks. NDP spokesperson Elena Cahill said the party was not aware of the post during the candidate nomination period. Fucking cowards. Man, I don't even understand the framing here. Because Jagmeet Singh himself has referred to what's going on in Gaza as a genocide. He's said it openly. So I don't know why they're being spineless here when we're all very clearly talking about the same thing. Do we have to use special wording? Do you have to get, like, clearance? Does Jagmeet need, like, I don't know, the World Economic Forum to like fucking sign off so we can drop the G word? What are we doing here? Cahill said Jakeman posted an apology for the remarks to her X account on Friday, though the Canadian press could not verify this claim, as the account appeared to have been removed. The NDP is always reviewing and improving our vetting process to make sure it's rigorous and that all of our candidates uphold the values and principles of our party, Cahill said in an email. Jakeman's exit from the party comes after the candidate nomination period closed, so there will be no NDP candidate to take her place in the Eastern Passage District, Cahill added. It's not clear whether Jakeman will run as an independent. The Nova Scotia Liberal Party also condemned the social media comments. There is no place for anti-Semitism. We can't point out the actions of a government against a group of people because in bizarro world, that is the West, the actions taken by a state equals anti-Semitism. So if you're Canadian, by that logic, and I say this to conservatives all the time, by this logic, if you're a conservative and you wear if you wave a fuck Trudeau flag, which up here in the sticks, a lot of people have fuck Trudeau flags. If you're waving that flag, you're anti-Canadian apparently. Because that's about as much sense as it makes. Hate or discrimination of any kind in our province, and we will not allow the occasion of Holocaust Remembrance Day to be used as a line of attack against the Jewish community here in Nova Scotia and across the world, the release said Saturday. Progressive Conservative leader Tim Houston said the NDP was correct to remove someone who holds dangerous and anti-Semitic views from the party. No matter how you worship in Nova Scotia and all of Canada, you should be able to do so without fear of intimidation. Fear of intimidation. Just pointing out the actions of the Israeli government is intimidation, I suppose. So you see how many steps they've taken. Someone just pointing out, like, one party being aggressor to another party. And by the end of it, the person pointing this out is intimidating the aggressor. It just, I'm sorry, Zionist propaganda always ceases to amaze me because, like, I ask myself, like, how anyone who grew up in the war in Iraq era, this could ever work on. Because it's the same variety of, like, repackaging of the situation. No matter how horrific the actions taken abroad are by one party, any criticism of that party makes you insert label here. Anyway. So in closing, that's how cucked Canada is. We are every bit as cucked when it comes to Israel and the genocide going on in Gaza. Words are worse than genocide, Snow. I know, right? Like, I know kids getting blown up kind of sucks, but have you thought of the people dropping the bombs' feelings? Because that's what's really important. Nick. Himbo, you're killing on Twix, encouraging the D's to take their country back. Thank you. And I encourage everybody to help me do it. Okay? Listen, guys. Listen. Donald Trump and Elon Musk used Starlink to steal the election from the Democrats. Their country was taken from them. Okay? So we need to give all of the support we can to help them stop the steal. Okay? January 18th, they're planning to protest Trump in DC. And so we got a bunch of time to get them as riled up as possible. Because they should be able to take their country back. Yeah, exactly. Ray Epps will be at the Pink Hat March. Yep. Okay. So that's the weekly Israel dumpster fire of the day. So, just some thoughts. The Trump's re-election is going to, I feel like first and foremost, it's going to heavily embolden the reactionaries up here in Canada. We have a ton of reactionaries, and we have a ton of people who are in the exact same boat as people that produce the results that you guys saw, right? With Trump winning a landslide. We have a ton of Canadians across the board, liberal, conservative, left, far left. Everybody's kind of struggling. And you've got a populist far-right figure in Pierre Poilievre who's, coming in and saying, you know what? This government doesn't have it. Everything's too expensive. Nobody can afford a home. I'm the common sense party. Conservatives always say that, common sense. Which is hilarious because the common sense always seems to come before the fucking up the economy to the point where it's 10 times worse than when they left it. So, I feel like Trump's colossal win is probably going to embolden the reactionaries up here. This is probably good for the conservatives. It's probably not bad, especially if that happens. The event that I kind of predicted would happen was us seeing more immigration up here. The conservatives are going to take that, they're going to run with it, and they're absolutely going to campaign off it. It's entirely possible we have like another year until an election. So if the NDP were smart, they'd use that year to sell themselves as a new direction forward, because that's what people are looking for right now. They're looking for change. They're not looking for reaction. They're looking for progress. So if the NDP weren't useless, they would take that and seize it and go, hey guys, conservatives have fucked up. Liberals have fucked up. Give us a shot. Canada needs a new direction. This is a perfect opportunity for them. Now, question. Do I think the NDP will do this? No. Because I think they are under atrociously bad management. And much like the Greens in America, they seem almost committed to fucking up the bag for themselves. But if I were in charge of the Liberal Party, the NDP, New Democratic Party, that's what I do. I take all of this reactionary fervor I'm seeing and siphon it into a new way forward and say, guys, we know the conservatives can't do anything they're promising. Why? Because Harper promised all the same shit. The liberals are pretty much just like the conservatives. They voted together like 600 times. So whatever they're offering, obviously you can see right now, that's not working either. Give us a way forward. Now the problems that the NDP have is it's going to take a while to uncouple them from the Liberal government, thanks to that coalition they got going with them. Now I know Jagmeet ripped up the agreement. I know he kind of denounced the Liberal government, said they were too neoliberal, too concerned about appeasing corporate interests. I get that, but that shit is going to stick. I feel like they're going to need a full year to decouple themselves, if they can, from the stench of that Liberal government. Because people are looking at the government right now and going, this isn't working, I'm hurting economically. And unlike the States, you don't really have that much plausible deniability anyway. The Liberals have been in power for a long time now. Because I hear people in the States going, well, you know, some of Biden's policies aren't really going to kick in until like Trump takes power, and he's going to take credit for that, and that really sucks. And it's like, I kind of get that. But also, again, like, I expect basic competence from politicians. So if the liberal claims that a lot of Biden's policies aren't going to take effect until Trump's term, why don't people know that? If people knew that things were going to get better, they just had to stay the course. Well, then that's pretty shitty communication if nobody knows that, because nobody knew that. I didn't know it. You have to do good messaging. You have to communicate with people in the country if you want them to vote for you. However, I digress. I'm putting on my elections are totally real, and this isn't just endless smoke. Primarily because we live under a dictatorship of capital, and so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what government is in charge. They're going to work for the bourgeoisie, the ruling capitalist class first, and they will figure out enough crumbs to throw off the table to all of us working class people, so we're not out in the streets protesting the government. That's kind of just how that goes. A lot of people ask me, how do you feel as tariffs are going to affect Canada? My answer is, I'm not entirely sure. My gut says things are probably going to be less catastrophic than the corporate press is painting it out to be. To be perfectly honest, I'm personally more worried about Americans. I am far more worried about Americans. Because we're like America's biggest trading partner. And they import, like, we're an export nation. We're probably going to hurt to some degree having tariffs on us, but holy fuck. Like, the amount of resources Americans import from Canada, shit is going to get really expensive for American consumers across the board, to like a frightening degree. All because Orange Man doesn't understand tariffs. Last I checked, he wants to replace income tax with tariffs. Which again, I've said this before, this is just going to result in a upward wealth transfer. Because again, the business isn't going to absorb the cost. A tariff is a tax on the business, so the business imports the goods. And without reindustrialization for America, I don't see how this is going to do what Trump is hoping it'll do. So it's essentially going to happen, and it might cause trade wars, it might cause a global economic catastrophe. We don't know. All I'm saying is I think Canada specifically, how it'll affect Canada specifically, I think is a little bit overblown in comparison to America. Because don't forget, that tariff comes in, the good is taxed, but the business pays that tax. And because we live under a capitalist society, they are immediately going to pass that cost down to the consumer. So, goes down to the consumer. The consumer pays more. Business still gets its profit. Government gets a nice little bump, right? We don't really know how it's gonna balance out. So, at the end of the day, I I remain firm that the biggest problem with this whole Trump tariff plan is it's going to affect poor people the worst. It's going to affect consumers the worst. It'll benefit rich people, benefit corporations, benefit the state. And I mean, America, where does your tax money go anyway? It goes to wars, it goes to Israel. If you got Trump as your president, you can bet your ass your tax money is going to continue to get sent over to Israel. I will bet any amount of money. That shit ain't stopping. Now, the Ukraine stuff might stop. But my theory is that's because Trump wants to focus in on Iran. They want to get out of the murky Ukraine stuff, and they want the machine to be hyper-focused on the Middle East. Why? Greater Israel. Which is something Donald Trump supports. It is something his $100 million donor, Miriam Adelson, supports as well. And of course, where are my manners? Those taxes are also going to go to a bunch of subsidies for defense contractors, subsidies for big business, etc., etc. So, not looking good. Now, do I think Trump's actually going to pull this off? I honestly don't know. Because again, like I said earlier, lest we forget, Trump's a guy that says a lot of shit like every other politician, and he breaks a lot of promises. You know, did he lock her up? Did he build the wall? Did he make Mexico pay for it? I could keep going forever with all of the broken promises. There were tons, like every other politician. So, we'll see. That's it's kind of my closing thoughts on the whole Orange Man sort of situation there. Excuse me. Now, I'm sure Trudeau's not thrilled. We had some videos earlier of like our MPs like assuring people like, don't worry, we've been through this before. I'm sure Trudeau doesn't want to deal with Trump again. Trump kind of, just shit on him. Trudeau's a narcissist. He doesn't like his ego being wounded. Trump's a narcissist too, though. And it's never pretty when two narcissists collide. It is never pretty. Because both of them are trying to maintain control over the other. So it's always that battle, right? And when it comes to Canada versus America with two narcissists, usually Canada's not winning that. Because the narcissist in control of Canada begrudgingly knows that the narcissist from America is far more powerful, far more influential. Yeah, exactly, Nick. Trump owned Trudeau. Trudeau's gotten owned by a bunch of world leaders. I still think to this day the greatest ownage was that video of him dealing with Xi Jinping, and he like couldn't even look at him. He was like looking at the floor, and then Xi was like, "We didn't agree on that. Clean your room. Clean your room." Xi basically pulled a Peterson on him. No, let's watch that video real quick. I know I can find it. It was fucking oh baby, was it gold. There we go. Alright, I'm just trying to find the one. I'm trying to find a version with captions. Here we go. Oh, this was glorious. All right, I found it. This is so fucking good. Harken back to 2022.
Everything we discussed is then leaked to the paper. That's not. And that's not how the way the conversation was conducted.
Look at Trudeau. Look at him.
If there is sincerity on your part,
free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on.
Look at his face.
Let's create the conditions first.
Oh my god. Too fucking good. Too fucking good. And afterwards, in the extended video, he just scurries away. Like some scolded little puppy. So fucking good. Americans just need soft communism. The whole West does. Canada absolutely does. And the material conditions have gotten so bad that, like, if we don't have some kind of drastic change in governance, we're probably going to look at something. The grounds for revolution are going to become somewhat fertile. It'll just, something's going to break. There's going to get to a breaking point. I actually went to a site that rated your reputation. I scored high, but my friends didn't. It was weird. Interesting. No eye contact? Yeah, Xi was so done. He's just like, fuck you, get out of here. Yeah, that was pretty great. I'm curious, what's PP up to? Just curious what the... here we go. So, just as a reminder of how Pierre Poilievre, PP if you will, is kind of mimicking the whole, like, he is taking a lot of pages out of Trump's book. Let's be completely real here. NDP liberals want to help the dirty oil dictators in Iran, Russia, and Venezuela. Common sense conservatives want to bring home energy production to make clean Canadian energy for the world and powerful paychecks for our workers. Sign here to support more Canadian energy production. So the same kind of energy as drill, baby, drill. What is this? Why was your wife Anita working for Maduro in Venezuela, dirty oil? Why are your Maple MAGA proxies like Tenet Media receiving funding from Putin, dirty oil that directly supports both you and Trump? Canada doesn't use Iranian oil. Well, Amos, I don't know this person too well. But to summarize, it's because conservatives are fucking hypocrites. They've always been hypocrites. So are liberals. But liberals, not lately, obviously, with the whole, like, stop the steal shit that's going on, which is just unhinged as all hell. But liberals in Canada, at least, for the most part, are usually at least kind of aware enough to, like, put a layer on the hypocrisy or justify it a little bit. Conservatives don't care about being hypocrites because they know deep down that most of their supporters have the memory of goldfish. And that's because they're already introducing they're already bombarding them with new information. Like, go and look how often conservative propaganda outlets, talking heads, politicians, how often they post, as opposed to like liberal or like SocDem or whatever. It's constant posting, constant information, constant bites, and that's because what they're doing is they're trying to just whip your brain into a frenzy. Nick Riviera, Himbo, would you be able to do a show on what's going on in the Indian community up in Canada? Why is India sending assassins to Canada, and why is the US responsible for this fuckery? That is something I would actually love to do a deep dive on, and I appreciate the suggestion. Leave it with me, and we'll see what we can get together for next week. Because, yeah, that is something that I've been curious about as well. Especially in the light of like all the noise our governments are making about Indian interference. And as we know, with all kinds of interference from foreign governments, foreign countries, you always have to cut through a lot of the bullshit. You got to cut through a ton of the bullshit, because a lot of it's like, you know, you're like, is there something here, or is this Russiagate? Is this just bullshit, or is this foreign interference as like kind of on the same level as Israel, for example, which does interfere which does do foreign interference in pretty much every Western country. So you gotta peel back a bunch of layers, but that would be a really good that'd be a really good topic for next week. So thank you for the suggestion. The people have spoken. Anyway, guys, we're coming up to an hour and a half. That's all I really have for tonight. India bougie class send their children to Canada and US. Huh. But thank you guys as always for showing up. I want to remind everybody that the debut of Snow Himbo Streams is going to be this Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you haven't already, please go subscribe to the Maple Files. Excuse me. If you haven't already, go subscribe to the Maple Files channel at the Maple Files with underscores separating them. Subscribe to me at Snow Himbo, at Snow Himbo on YouTube. And sign up on Kick. I'm already on Kick, man. I have an at Snow Himbo on Kick. We're there on INN too. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Hopefully I'll see all of you Thursday night. We got a lot of shit to cover. I got a lot of thoughts about the unhinged developments as of late. So, yeah, thanks again, everybody. And as always, keep questioning.